أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب لكم آمين يا رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين اللهم اجمع شمل المسلمين والكريستيان والأمة في مدينة دباو وسلم دائما مجتمعنا هذا بالسلم والأمن والتقدم في بلدنا هذا آمين يا رب العالمين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على خير خلقه سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين يا رب العالمين.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today to praise and worship you and give you thanks for all the things you continue to provide for ourselves and our families. Father, we humbly ask for forgiveness for all the times we have offended you, when we forget to acknowledge your presence in the image of our brothers and sisters, and for moments we fail to be good stewards of the blessings you have given us. Continue to guide and protect each one of us, Lord, that we may always walk in the lights of your everlasting love and mercy. Grant us, Father, with your comfort in times of distress and with your strength in times of weakness. Bestow upon us your unending grace and healing, that we may in turn become instruments of gentleness and compassion to others. We ask all this in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, with the prayer and the intercession of our Blessed Mother. Amen.
Hello Philippines, my name is Sushmita.
I'm Sam,
Broadcasting live from Global TV Bollywood Studio, India.
live from Global TV London studio. You are watching Global TV Philippines.
I'm so excited to join you. Catch me soon on the Rapporteur News with
Isabel
Isabel Fernandez and Chino Hansel
Filian.
Together, let's unite the universe with substance by bringing news you can trust. Until then.
See you.
hanggang kay bata pa, berdeng lupa na kay ganda, itilang mga bulaklak, mga pusong puno ng galak. Lumipas ang mga araw, pananaw tila'y natugunaw, kasak may niyakap, kahit mga puno'y umiiyak. Buksan mo ang iyong mata at tingnan mo ang panaghoy nila. Kagubat ay lumuluha, wag mo sana itatuwa. Sige na, humayo ka, oras na ibigin siya. Bigyang pansin ang mundo natin, kalikasan ay maling. Pakinggan huli ng ibon, may ngiti sa gabit hapon. Sa tulong ng Panginoon, halina tayo'y tumugon. Basura'y pag-igala sa daan, ilog o dagat, lusok sa kalangitan, sana'y ating bawasan. Buksan mo ang iyong mata at tingin mo ang panaghoy nila. Kagubat ay lumuluha, wag mo sanang itatuwa. Sige na, humayo ka, oras na ibigin siya. Bigyang pansin ang mundo natin, kalikasan ay maling. Sa maliit na paraan, pagbabago'y makakamtan. Ang kabutihan ng tularan, yakapin inang kalikasan. Sige na, humayo ka, oras na ibigin siya. Bigyang pansin ang mundo natin, kalikasan ay maling. Sige na, humayo ka, oras na ibigin siya. Sa tulong ng Panginoon, halina tayo'y tumagon. Sige na, humayo ka, oras na ibigin siya. Sa tulong ng Panginoon, halina tayo'y tumagon.
Yan, maraming salamat sa Infinite Reach. Please subscribe on YouTube and welcome mga kaibigan sa Ako at ang Kalikasan TV ngayong araw na ito. Ngayon ay Wednesday, November 18, 2020 at syempre advance happy birthday kay Miss Ran Tubig bukas November 19. Ayan po ang aking better half at palagi pong sumusuporta sa ating mga shows at mga live. Ayun, bago po ako magsimula mga kaibigan, nais ko lang iparating na simula po bukas, November 19 hanggang December 1, magkakaroon po ng MAC COP26. Ito po yung climate talks na na-postpone at na-move on November 2021. Pero yung mga kabataan po ay magtutuloy sila na mag-usap-usap kung ano nga ba dapat ang gawin, no? Para dito sa mga nangyayari para sa ating kalikasan kasi napaka-urgent na po nito. Sabi ko nga, kanina I have talked to my kababayan in Atimonan, Quezon. Sabi ko, kailangan na natin itong buuin ng mabilis kasi palala ng palala yung ating mga situation. And
Ladies and gentlemen, as I have said in the previous episodes, climate resiliency does not mean na pag bumagsak tayo at nabaha, ay bumabangon tayo palagi. Ang ibig sabihin po ng resiliency ay pagiging handa natin na itong mga bagay na ito ay mabawasan at hanggat maaari ay hindi na po maulit. So ano po ba yung mock top 26 na mangyayari po simula bukas at pag-uusapan po natin ito next Wednesday rin. Ito po, introduce ko lang kayo sa mangyayaring mock top 26 starting tomorrow.
Mock COP26 is an event that will take place from the 19th of November to the 1st of December, where young activists will set out their views on how to address climate change and create a more sustainable future for all living beings and ecosystems.
The first week will see speeches and workshops from high-profile individuals and youth activists to inspire our generation and to understand some of the ideas and concepts that there are to help mitigate climate change and deal with this catastrophe. The second week will see high-level statements made on behalf of countries by their youth delegation, and then discussions to work out our high-level statement for the end of the two-week conference.
It will be a platform that will give voice to the youth, the women, the indigenous communities, the marginalized communities, people who haven't always underrepresented in talk like this.
The youth understand that there is no time to delay on climate action, and we are mobilizing to fill the void created by the postponement of COP26.
We're all hugely disappointed that progress towards climate action is being delayed for an entire year, which is time that we just don't have to be wasting ignoring problems that are getting more immediate every day.
So this is it. This is the chance to show the world leaders how youth can shape climate talk.
So implement as many actions as possible all around the world.
The annual COP conference, where UN countries meet to assess climate change-related issues, has been postponed until next year.
Mock COP26 is a virtual youth event to fill the void of the postponement of COP26.
Climate crisis is not a problem of the future. It is happening right now, and it's high time we take actions.
It's quite obvious that world leaders does not yet understand the necessity of an urgent climate action.
ये दिखाती है कि आजकल के नौजवान इस सियारे के मुस्तकबिल के लिए फिक्रमंद और माहौलियाती मसाइल के लिए संजीदा हैं.
It's giving me power to raise my voice as a young climate activist.
Some brand climate activists as alarmists, but the thing is, reality is alarming. These are just the facts. We aren't just fighting for our future, we are fighting for our present.
Yeah, no, you have watched the videos about COP26, and it is about time that really the world leaders take action. No? Kasi sabi nga, ang dami ng batas, ang dami ng mga pag-uusap, but there is no definite action. Napakabagal po ng pagkilos, napakabagal ng mga ginagawa para dito. Kaya panahon na para kumilos tayo mismo at bigyan natin ng pressure ang government around the world, even including the government of the Philippines for that matter. So, yeah. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to our topic. So today, we will be discussing about space apps. So ito na po ang pang-apat po sa series natin ng talk about space apps challenge. And ano nga ba itong space apps na ito? No? Let's have a short introduction.
Hey, I'm Thomas Surpok, an Associate Administrator for Science here at NASA, and I'm so happy to welcome you to Space Apps. Space Apps is a community of scientists, engineers, artists, and hackers coming together to address key issues here on Earth. At the heart of Space Apps are data that come to us from spacecraft that are flying around Earth and are looking at our world, and we ask you to take those data to learn new things that help us. To learn more, go to spaceappschallenge.org or join the conversation at #SpaceSaps.
Yon, dati pangarap ko maging scientist kaso naging scientist, no? Hindi natuloy. So yan, let me first introduce you para ipakilala sa atin for the fourth time. Sampo, hindi tayo magsasawa kasi iba-iba din naman yung nagiging audience natin. At para bigyan tayo ng latest update, may latest update sa isa nating naging guest dito. I think yung Project ADs, no? Let us welcome ang punong abala mga kaibigan sa Space Apps ng NASA Space Apps Philippines, si Sir Michael Lan. Sir Michael, kamusta? Yan, kamusta sir?
Ayun, isang magandang hapon sa inyong lahat at nagpapasalamat naman ako kay David para sa pag-unlock dito sa ating next episode dito sa ako at ang Kalikasan TV. Talagang we're really honored na maging part nitong show and napakasaya talaga ng experience sa Space Apps at maraming salamat din David for giving us the opportunity to have this platform for us to share our stories, to inspire other people na pwede pala no na magamit ang mga space data na to na kukuha galing sa outer space no para malaman kung ano man nangyayari sa ating mundo. Ayan, lalong-lalo
balita ko mayroong kang magandang balita tungkol sa isa nating Space App finalist, no? Anong balita 'yan?
Ayun. So yung winner natin last year, no, yung Project ADIS, no, nakakuha sila ng isa pang international award from the Group of Earth Observations, no, kung saan tinutugon nila yung kanilang solusyon, no, yung dengue mosquito habitat mapper nila na tumutugon sa Sustainable Development Goals ng United Nations. So ito ay isang panel ng mga scientifico galing sa iba't ibang mundo, no? Kasama na diyan ang NASA rin. Yan nakakatuwa din eh. Kasama din yung NASA dito at napangaralan ulit yung mga Pilipino, no? Mga Pilipino sa kanilang gawa.
Malulupit talaga mga Pilipino. Woo! Pinoy! Mabuhay.
Yan, mabuhay talaga ang Pilipino. At ito ay isang patunay lang, David, na kayang-kayang gumawa ng mga Pilipino ng mga makabagong teknolohiya na makikinabang hindi lang sa kapaligiran lang natin no? Hindi lang sa atin, hindi lang sa buong bansa, no? Kundi sa buong mundo na rin, no? So
nakakabilib talaga 'yan, no? Biruin mo. Sana talaga ang hiling talaga natin itong mga kagaya nito ng Project AD saka naman yung guest natin ngayon ay maging ma-recognize din naman ng ating Department of Health at ng ating pamahalaan. No? Which brings us to our topic for today, which is Sentinellium for Public Health. So, ang pag-uusapan natin ay isang app that can actually, sabi dito, might predict pandemic prediction and management. Wow! So, to tackle about that, let us introduce to you our very special guest for today. He is the head, of course, of the project of Sentinellium, combines training in physics to create innovative tech driven by data and sustained by ambitious creativity. Self-taught data enthusiast, advocate for leveraging space to improve human lives by augmenting it with machine learning if necessary. Yeah? Currently, he is the national point of contact of the Philippine for Space Generation Advisory Council, SGAC, the head trailblazer of lab kinetics for data, space, and design thinking, and is currently pursuing project to promote equal and fair opportunity through education, particularly in physics and mathematics. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome a special guest, Mr. HARLEE QUIZZAGAN. Sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon po.
Kamusta? Kamusta naman dyan sa lugar mo?
So far, okay naman. For the past few days, medyo scary lang yung bagyo pero yeah, still alive.
So ano bang pinagkakaabalahan mo ngayon?
Yeah. Well, lately, puro setting up projects that are also geared towards social good, particularly in using data science and machine learning to come up with ways to basically improve human lives using space technology. So, ang ginagawa namin ngayon, mga several projects na we are creating products based on satellite imagery that can be useful for, let's say, ito yung Sentinellium, we're doing it for monitoring public health. The other projects that we're doing is risk analysis of roads, for example.
Wow.
This is useful for navigation system. Since sobrang, kunyari sa mga mabubundok na lugar sa Pilipinas, pag unfamiliar ka sa lugar na nina-navigate mo, hindi mo alam kung gaano ka-dangerous yung ano na yon, yung road na yon. So the project that we're doing enables you to be warned, kunyari na ang road na tinatahak mo ngayon medyo dangerous based on these things. So you have to be careful, something like that. So those are some of the projects that we're working
Parang
on.
may naisip ako itanong, no? Yung bang kalsada dapat talaga may bakal o wala?
What do you mean may bakal po?
Kasi alam mo yung mga kalsada natin ngayon, pag napansin mo, kasi nung bata ako, usually pag nakikita ko nagsisemento ng roads, mayroong parang yung cross na parang iron or something na ginagawa. Pero ngayon, most of the roads, nagbubuhos na lang sila ng semento. Tapos wala nang ganong construction sa loob. Ano ba yan? Bago ba klase ng semento yung ginagamit nila?
Hindi ko lang sure, pero I think mas civil engineering yung question na to. Pero depende ata yun sa...
Kasi pag risk, akala ko kasama yung construction kung tama o...
Hindi namin siya na-detect through satellite image. So, that's a good point. We might want to look into that. That's a good
Kasi
point.
doon ako nagtataka ngayon eh. Di ba, Sir Lance, no? Dati, yung mga kalsada natin, mayroong bakal. Tapos ngayon, parang naka-invento yata sila ng special cement na hindi na kailangan nun. Well, anyway, naging curious lang ako kasi kasi hindi ko malaman kung risky ba yon o dapat ba, di ba? Para kasi risk assessment yan, di ba, on roads, no? Although di natin alam kung madedetect ba ng satellite kung may bakal o wala yung mga kalsada.
Yung mga conditions ng kalsada, nakukuha lang namin sa sa parang database na sinurvey manually yung mga roads na yun. Pero pag i-detect mo siya sa satellite, hindi siya kaya. Unless, ang madidetect mo lang siguro road condition or material, pero hindi mo malalaman kung may metal ba or wala. Probably there's a method, but we might want to investigate on that in the future. That's a good point, sir. Thank you for that.
Binigyan pa kita ng problema. Well, anyway, paano ba nakilala itong si Michael at napasaba ka dito sa sa Space Apps Challenge na ito?
Opo. Actually, nung quarantine, ang nangyayari lang noon syempre before quarantine, busy, ang daming trabaho, ganyan. Tapos nung quarantine, parang natunganga ka na lang, hindi mo alam kung anong gagawin mo. Ang daming trabaho na na-cancel, ganyan. So, I think before August or June, nakikita ko na yung advertisement for NASA Space Apps Challenge. And then I looked into the details of like how to join, when is it going to happen. And then yun, initially I had an idea, I didn't know anyone who could join me. And then I asked Sir Lance how to join NASA Space Apps. He walked me through what are the requirements. And then sabi ko, pwede ba akong mag-join? Wala akong team, ganyan. So, in-explain niya sa akin na, ayun, pwedeng mag-join sa mga hackathon. Actually, it is my first time to join a hackathon, yung NASA Space Apps. So, I thought kasi parang pupunta ka doon, tapos dapat buo yung team mo, ganyan, tapos kayo yung mag-work. I think that's the usual setup. But since it's virtual, I think it's easier to do it na even though you don't have a team, you can join. And so, he explained that to me, and then, yun, during the hackathon, I did join, looked for my teams.
So, unlike doon sa iba, parang yung mga nauna yata may team na sila, no? Tama ba ako, Sir Michael?
Oo, yeah. Yung ibang sumali kasi ng Space Apps, yung iba may team. Tapos kung si HARLEE nga, yun nga, gusto niya sumali pero walang team. So, ayun, sabi ko, sige, guide natin yung si HARLEE para makapaghanap ng team during the hackathon. So, sabi ko, kasi yung Space Apps kasi during the May 30 to 31st, meron yan tinatawag na rocket chat platform. Oo, kung saan, isa siyang chat platform kung saan lahat ng participants nandun. So sabi ko sa mga participants, introduce yourselves. Then sabihin nyo kung sino kayo, describe nyo, then ano yung projects na naisip nyong gawin. Then, ayun, doon na nagkakilala yung mga yung mga yung naghahanap pa ng mga teams. So may mga teams na naghahanap pa ng mga members. Meron din mga members na gustong sumali ng teams. Meron din mga members na gustong gumawa ng sarili ng team. Then, yun nga, no? Dun sa past natin, yung mga past episodes natin, yung mga teams actually yung mga nauna, like Project Ades, Gideon, and Celestial Snails. Buo na yung team nila.
Wow.
Prior to the joining the
But
hackathon.
I was really amazed kasi 'di ba? Hindi ba yung HARLEE yung experience mo, isn't it a bit more difficult and challenging compared to the other teams? Kasi 'di ba, pagdating mo doon, hindi mo alam sino yung mga katim mo, anong ugali ng katim mo, anong expertise. Yeah. How did you deal with all of those?
Yeah, that's a good question, no? So actually when I was going into it, I was like thinking na yung iba nakapag-usap na anong gagawin nila during the hackathon. I mean, they had this whole game plan, and then everyone in the the team would know ano yung tasks nila, ganyan. But I didn't have that opportunity. But when I was introducing the idea 2 or 3 days before the hackathon, so parang yun yung phase na bubuuin mo yung team mo. I was just explaining na ito yung idea ko, I'm still looking for members, ganyan. Tapos a few people started to show interest na, hey, are you still looking for a team? Gusto kong sumali, ganyan. Actually, I wasn't very picky kasi nga wala akong team.
So technically, hindi lang ikaw yung walang team.
Yes po, madami kami na went in through the hackathon without a team. So yeah, during the first few days na may nagsasabi na gusto nila ganyan. Actually, wala naman akong way para i-screen na, ay gusto kita, ay ayaw kita. So I didn't have that chance. So I just
parang wala nang job interview, wala nang ganun.
So yeah, I was just relying on the fact na people wanted to join this hackathon and they're interested in the idea. They want to contribute to the idea. So I'll just have them into the team. And so yun nga yung nangyari, yung mga first 5 people who told me na they wanna join me. I said, okay, let's form a team together. So yeah, and then yun, parang malaki yung effect siguro ng fact na all of us liked the idea. They wanted to contribute to the idea. So during the hackathon, it wasn't really hard for us to manage na ito yung gagawin ganyan. So the first thing that I did when the hackathon started was set up a meeting for everyone and then just explain further in detail yung idea. Tas, what do you guys think? And then yeah, we talked about these are the tasks, these are the things that we might want to accomplish. So what I did basically is before the hackathon, even though wala akong team, I had a game plan in my head na these are the possible subtasks or the researches that we need to do during the hackathon. So that when I formed the team, I just simply had to explain to them kung ano yung gagawin namin. So it was easier even though hindi kami magkakakilala. So malaking effect talaga yung they joined in because they liked the idea and it worked seamlessly. So yeah, it was really nice. Professional naman lahat, so it worked. Kaya yung pagka-qualify sa global finalists, given the fact na hindi kami magkakakilala. And even until now, by the way, we've never met physically and we're still working together. It's a good testament na it's about the idea and then being aligned together na you're good and you like the idea, parang ganun. So yeah.
Meron ka bang parang pinanda rin na presentation para malaman natin kung ano ba tong
Meron naman. I have a summary presentation.
Sige, excited ako malaman niya kasi ano to para pandemic prediction ba? Hindi lang for COVID to, di ba? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes
It
po.
can work for the future developing pandemics and also profiling people, tama ba?
Yes po. So actually, the idea of Sentinellium before the NASA space apps was really geared towards public health monitoring. And then it just so happens that yung NASA space apps was specialized for COVID-19. So we had to like use COVID-19 as a test bed. But which is a good opportunity for us to check no kung viable ba actually yung solution. So yeah, but generally speaking, it's meant for public health monitoring.
Maganda ng pangalan, Sentinellium.
Sentinel.
Parang Sentinel. Di ka na mahilig sa X-Men.
Hindi naman. I mean, mahilig ako pero hindi naman siya based.
Saan nagaling? Bakit yung pangalan, bakit Sentinellium?
Actually, I was just looking for a brandable name, and also parang Sentinel is representative of guard, and I wanted to do a public monitoring system nga. So and then I just turned it into a name that sounds like an element, Sentinellium. So it's like an element that guards and protects public, parang ganun. So it was just a brandable skit. Yeah.
This turns out good. Sige. Tingnan natin yung ano mo. Kung ano ba yung project na yan. Napaka-interesting. No?
Pero madagdag ko lang, David. Talagang tuwan-tuwa ako sa team talaga ni HARLEE dun sa Sentinellium. Kasi nga, parang proud na proud ako kasi yun nga lang yung team for the Philippines na naging global finalist na nabuo during the hackathon. Yun lang, natutuwa lang ako kasi talaga bihira lang talaga na yun na nga during the hackathon. Tapos kasi siyempre hindi magkakilala yung mga tao doon eh. Tapos doon pa magbubuo ng team. So parang proud ako doon sa grupo ni HARLEE kasi kahit paano may game plan na may game plan na siya. Kumbaga alam na niya sino yung ano yung kailangan niya, ito yung gusto ko, ito yung hahanapin ko. So yun yung maganda doon sa team niya.
Yeah. I think that's a good point kasi I have a few friends who also joined the NASA space apps without a team. They tried looking for a team then, but they weren't able to formalize the project. Parang hindi nila natuloy towards the end. Parang wala silang team going in, tapos they look for people during the NASA space apps, and they were able to form a team, but hindi nila natapos yung project or na fully define kung ano yung project towards the end. Kasi yung naging problema is even though they were able to form a team, the idea was raw, and they were doing the brainstorming during the hackathon. And it was very hard for them because they have a very desperate personality. So during yung brainstorming pa lang, parang nagtitake time na siya nagbabatuhan sila ng idea. Yung mga teams na nabuo na, yung advantage nila is prior to the hackathon, they had a pre-discussion already what they wanted to do during the hackathon. Kaya sobrang klaro sa kanila yung gagawin nila sa hackathon. So yung version dapat kapag you're going into hackathon without a team is ikaw mismo who is a proponent of the idea. Kahit hindi ka nakapag-brainstorm with your teammates, since ikaw naman yung magiging leader eventually, you'll have to define a game plan na ito yung project, ito yung definition ng task na pwede natin gagawin. It will save time kasi di-discuss mo na lang siya sa team members mo, and alam mo yun, hindi na kayo magbabatuhan pa ng ideas kasi malilimit na yung scope or definition ng scope niya. So yeah, that's just the point.
Very very interesting talaga. Kasi actually kaya ako nagiging interested kasi given the nature of the disease right now, it's very zoonotic, no? And these diseases and pandemic, this might not actually be the last, no? Kasi we have di ba, nagsimula sa SARS-CoV, then MERS-CoV, kasi nga SARS-CoV-2, as wildlife mingles with our civilization, this kind of diseases will be technically be more often than not interacting with human. And I think your app will be very, very helpful if people can actually use that app and be available to the public. So can you share may presentation ka ba? Can you share
Sige
it to us para malaman pa natin yung Sentinellium na yan?
Is the share screen working po?
Yeah. Ito.
Okay, cool. Sige. I'll just share a bit of what Sentinellium is all about. Wait. Okay. So Sentinellium is we'd like to think of it as a dual core service, meaning we are serving two general types of users, which are the individual users and the local health units. For the individual users, we are providing them risk profiling. So, for example, a quick example or application of this would be in the context of COVID-19. If you want to understand how risky are you in terms of your health history and your location of getting infected of COVID-19, you can use the service to to plan kung ay risky ako, hindi ako lalabas. Ay low risk naman sa area namin. Okay lang na lumabas ako basta safe yung gagawin ko ganyan. And then for the health units, so sila yung magmo-monitor ng public health. So they will be provided with a dashboard that enables them to monitor public health. So the objective is that for the LGUs, it should serve as an early warning system because what happened during COVID-19, for example, was that had it been controlled earlier, there would have been a chance to have a better outset than what we're currently having right now. So prediction and early intervention is really an important thing, and that's what we want to serve with Sentinellium. Not just for COVID-19 again, but for public health. Examples of this one would be, for example, if you are able to monitor the hypertensive risk or diabetes or malaria or polio in a certain locality, then it will allow you to strategize on how to mitigate these things. So yeah, and then for the individual users, yun nga, yung risk profiling. What's really interesting is why Sentinellium would want to do this. For the LGUs in particular, the main reason why we need to help the LGUs do this is because, okay, even though they know that data is very valuable, they do acknowledge na sobrang laking natutulong ng analysis of data to come up with predictions and whatnot. But not all LGUs are equipped with having an organized analytics dashboard. So what that means is sometimes hindi naman lahat ng LGUs may kapasidad na mag-wrangle with data, the technical capacity and the physical resources and whatnot. Also, if they will study the data pa lang before predicting it, it will translate to basically lives lost because they will spend time trying to understand the data instead of going straight to coming up with suggestions or recommendations on how to mitigate the problem. And the main point actually is localized recommendations. So this is very important in terms of public health monitoring because you don't want the disease to be spreading at a large scale. So it's very important for you to know at a very granular level. We are aiming for a granular level na nasa barangay level that allows you to understand the risk of a certain barangay instead of looking at the risk of a certain province, which is too big already. So that's what we want to do. Sentinellium recognized the fact that there's no localized recommendations just yet in terms of monitoring public health. There are, for example, in the case of COVID-19, there are guidelines provided by WHO and DOH, for example, pero guidelines lang siya, hindi siya necessarily applicable for a certain locality. So yung localized yung main point ng Sentinellium. Also, if most systems who are doing early predictions or early warning systems, they most of the time rely on user-generated data. Pero we should recognize the fact that there's a very big limitation to that. Siguro mas maintindihan natin siya. For example, let's say, gusto mong i-predict yung individual risk of a user in terms of getting infected with COVID-19. So you'll have to understand yung mga body statistics nila, di ba? Like body temperature, let's say, body temperature, blood oxygen maybe, and those kinds of data which are user individual users would generate them. It's not like you can measure that with a cell phone. So yun yung limit. So what should you do if you what are the variables that you can use to predict COVID-19 infection risk if you don't have those user-generated data that are seemingly intuitive and important in actually understanding the risk? So yeah, and then the other one, which I think appealed to the NASA space apps, was the fact that we addressed yung limited user access. So madaming technology na nagtatry na magganito din, particular for COVID, sobrang dami nito. The rise of these technology was during the COVID-19. Most of these are web apps, and it requires internet for you to be able to use the service. So for Sentinellium, what we had to do was take into account the fact that hindi naman lahat ng Pilipino ay may access to the internet. So yeah. So how do we actually predict the risk of infection, for example? So there are different data sets that we can use. We can use yung user-generated data nga and verified statistics from DOH, for example. Pero in the case of public health, we would consider this as only a small part of the entire picture. So even though you have these data sets, it's not like your prediction would be very accurate. So what we tried to do with Sentinellium was think of other ways to make these data sets more reflective of the real image of the real situation. So we augmented it. We zoomed into it by using satellite data. So satellite data might be useful in understanding how fast a virus will be spreading, or what are the risk factors that impact the spread of polio, for example. What are the other factors that can be detected with a satellite that allows you to determine obesity in a certain locality, if we can go that far, for example. So yeah, and then aside from that, we also augment it with on-ground data sets. These are data sets that are generated on ground from sensors, for example, those kinds of things. So yeah, here are just a few examples of the satellite images that we are using, satellite data that we are using to do predictions. So population density, in short words, the denser a city is, the faster a disease might be spreading. So you might want to take that into account in understanding the evolution of a disease. Demographic distribution, one of the things that we're understanding is if the disease is spreading in clusters, it's very important to understand how clustered is the population. For example, it was already found out that yung occurrence ng COVID-19 or COVID-19 infection occurs in clusters. For example, pag madaming public health workers, pag madaming people na exposed sa mga public places, such as tricycle drivers or public utility drivers, mga ganun. So you want to understand how much of the population in a certain locality are exposed or susceptible or in danger of these things. And then for now, nighttime light is out of the picture already because it's not reflective. Initially, we wanted to use this to understand the mobility of a certain place, like how active is the place in terms of people moving around. We wanted to use nighttime data, but it turns out it's a tricky data set to consider. And then aerosol depth, for example, a direct example of this is if you want to understand yung cases of asthma, for example, or respiratory related diseases. Of course, very intuitive na dyan na ano yung impact ng aerosol or pollutants. And these are things that we can detect with satellite images. And then network analysis and geospatial analysis, like we mentioned a while ago, yung disease is spreading due to movement of people, movement of wildlife. So we are taking into account yung connectivity of places. A simplified version of the explanation of this that I keep repeating is, pag mas madami bang connected na roads sa isang city, which translates to mas madaming taong pumupunta doon, pumapasok labas, does that also increase the risk factor of that certain place in, spreading the disease? So that's what we do with network analysis. And then we are also looking into social media data for, trying to understand kung we're trying to measure kung nagpapanik na ba yung mga tao based on their social media sentiments. And that might be useful in, predicting na nagpapanik sila kasi sila mismo may nararamdaman na sila and they're trying to search the internet. And Filipinos are known for self-diagnosis, and even me sometimes, pag may nararamdaman ako, ang una kong ginagawa is search the internet. So, or post the internet. If those things can be captured and translated into a meaningful variable, so we can use these cases, then it would be. So yeah. And what are the values that we are delivering with Sentinellium? To monitor the evolution of disease certain population or the proliferation of diabetes, for example. And the biggest thing that we are trying to provide is yung zoom into the locality nga. Kasi if you want to mitigate a disease, you want to zoom into where it started. In terms of granularity, you want to mitigate it habang maliit pa siya. You don't want to mitigate it kung nasa provincial level na siya. So those are the things that we're developing right now. So yeah, that's a brief summary of what the project is all about.
Maraming salamat. Parang medyo nagka-problema yung Facebook kanina. Parang nag-down.
Oo. Baka sa internet.
Nag-down na naman si Facebook. Baka dinadala na ni Donald. Hindi, yung iba rin nawala sa nawala rin sa live. Tapos nag-freeze yung Facebook. So well, anyway, ano yung mga pinakamahirap na kinaharap more challenges that you guys face in developing
I think
this?
Feeling ko common to sa mga data related projects, no, na during brainstorming, pag nag-identify kayo ng mga variables na gusto nyong i-consider, for example, parang sobrang intuitive niya na nagme-make sense na kailangan nating intindihin yung connectivity to how does the connectivity of a place
Yan, si HARLEE naman na nawawala ngayon. Nagkalolo ko na yan. Hello, HARLEE? Yan, sige. Nakabalik ka na. Binalik ka na ng internet. Hello? Nawalan ba tayo na internet? Ako ba yung wala? O si HARLEE yata yung nawala?
Nandito ako.
Yan, Sir Mike. Ikaw, balik ko muna sa iyong tanong. No? Ano ba yung na-obserbahan mo doon sa group ni na HARLEE compared doon sa ibang groups? Kasi di ba iba yung development ng team nila eh. So ano yung parang na-observe mo na kakaiba o naging edge ba nila in the Space Apps Challenge?
Well, siguro yung kakaibang naobserbahan ko is that they leverage on the user data. Yan. Tsaka hyper-localize yung kanilang yung kanilang tina-target, no. Pero yung iba, kunyari, yung winner natin na Gideon, more on in-country based naman yon, per country based. So, yung sa Sentinellium naman, merong hyper-localized element.
Pag sinabi mong hyper-localized, anong ibig sabihin?
Sa isang location, may makukuha ka ng mga iba't ibang mga data or information. So, yun yung napansin kong unique talaga dito sa Sentinellium.
So yan, HARLEE, balikan kita. Pag-usapan ulit. Nandiyan, mukhang nag-freeze ulit siya. Naka-convert siya ata.
Oo nga, ayun. Oo nga. kahapon, nag-number 1 trending
Nagloloko
yun.
nga yung ano ko sa phone. Ayun, bumalik na. Nag-down yung Facebook talaga. Technically, ladies and gentlemen, nag-down yung Facebook, kaya nagkakaproblema rin tayo siguro. Ayan, bumalik na yung ating mga viewers. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Nag-down po yung Facebook. Sa wakas, nag-down din siya in a couple of times, no? Bihira yan. Baka tinitira na ni paring Donald. Okay, balik tayo. HARLEE, ano yung mga na-encounter mo na challenges in developing Sentinellium?
So, yung sinasabi ko kanina, I was trying to say na during brainstorming, when you're formulating these ideas, these hypotheses na, ay baka ito magiging useful siya. Feeling namin yung understanding connectivity of a city, for example, nagme-make sense naman na may impact siya sa ang tawag dito, pag laganap or pagdami ng cases for COVID-19, for example. So we had these ideas, we had these hypotheses, and then when you try to test it, it turns out na hindi pala siya useful, mga ganon. So you have a lot of hypotheses that you thought are making sense, but when you test it, it's not making sense. So you end up scrapping them out of your implementation, and then you're back to ground zero. You'll have to rethink again the entire process. It's all about pivoting and prototyping immediately as possible, and checking whether it actually works. So it's very challenging to actually come up with data that makes sense, especially that the data sets are very scarce and they are hard to come by. So you have to be very creative sa pag-come up ng mga measurements na pwede mong gawin. I think ang pinaka relatable na challenge namin, for example, we wanted to understand mobility of people. So of course, nung nagsimula na yung mag-ease yung lockdown, 'di ba? Ang daming taong nagsisilabasan. So we want to take that into account. Pero wala kaming means to actually solve that. So we tried to look into telco data. We had an initial conversation. Pwede ba namin gamitin yung data sets niyo to understand mobility? And they did mention, or they did explain to us, that there is a data set na pwedeng maging useful. Pero since a small group nga lang kami, and that data is coming from a corporate entity, syempre may bayad yon. And yung bayad, since data is oil these days, sobrang mahal.
May bayad pa rin yun kahit
yes po.
Hindi naman proprietary, hindi naman commercial.
Yes po. Yes po. So it's literally a product that they sell. So data these days are products. They are made into products. And so that was very challenging kasi sayang, sobrang sakto ng data, pero mahal siya. We cannot afford it. Ayun, it's literally in the millions, and we're still in the prototyping stage, so we don't even know if yung babayaran naming data will actually turn out.
Ito yung mobility data, tama ba ako?
Yes po. So yun yung naging mahirap sa amin, and but that's okay because we had to
siguro Google, yung Waze ba, yung Waze o yung Google, baka yun.
We tried accessing Waze. You still need to be a partner with them. And then Google, they also released the mobility data. Pero we wanted, yung mobility data kasi ng Google is also an estimate. It's just an estimate based on data pre-lockdown. We wanted to get raw data sana na, yung raw data during movements of people talaga. But
wala bang satellite na nag-monitor no, na parang nakapokus sila sa galaw ng sasakyan? Wala.
That was the first thing that we wanted to do. It's actually doable, pero the problem is you cannot really get it real time. Yung aim namin sana is yung as in frequency count ng mga tao na going in and going out of a certain locality, for example. And if you want to use the satellite image na high resolution enough to detect yung cars, most of those products, satellite products or image products, are already paid as well. So sobrang tricky niya, kailangan mong maging creative. Paano natin to gagawin? Nang mura lang.
How important is mobility when it comes to your app in determining a pandemic? Ano bang rank ng mobility factor for a pandemic?
Initially, dun sa initial analysis namin, actually magiging very important lang siya kapag as in ang tawag dito, meron kasi kaming scale na ginawa. Pag sabihin na natin na large scale na yung yung pag-spread ng virus, doon siya nagiging importante as a factor. Kasi it means na hindi na siya contained. It's already spreading out. So you wanna track how these people are moving so that you can basically stop them from moving and stop them from spreading the virus. Pero prior to that, it's not really important pa. Kasi ang mas importante na factors in starting these diseases is saan sila nagmumula in the first place. It's not from people moving around. It's from a place na kung saan nag-originate talaga yung virus na yun or a disease, for example. So yeah, that's why we had to put it down the line kasi it's really hard to measure. We don't have the money for it and it's not really intuitive anyway. So yeah.
Sa bagay, kapag halimbawa, biglang nagkaroon ng mass movement ng tao palabas sa isang lugar, you will ask yourself, ano nangyayari? There's something happening in that place. Pwedeng gera and pwedeng spread of disease, di ba? Pag biglang walang lumalabas, baka may nangyari din sa kanila. Bakit wala biglang lumalabas sa population? So that's indeed a very good a very good factor. Pero I mean, without with the constraints in the mobility, how do you plan to proceed in the future with your app?
Actually, ang ginawa na lang namin ngayon is focus on connectivity. I think it's a robust variable enough for us to capture yung yun nga. Kasi parang think of it this way, mobility, the way that it impacts or factors into the spread of a disease is kasi yung mga tao, they're moving from one place to the other. So an alternative variable that we used is gaano ba ka-connected yung isang city to another city, for example. Kasi for example, ang daming roads or highways na papunta sa isang syudad. Ibig sabihin, mas madaling pumunta doon yung mga tao. So does that also impact na mas mataas yung risk if hindi ni-lockdown yung city na yun kasi ang daming taong pumupunta doon kasi nga very accessible siya. So that's what we did. We had to look at an alternative like a substitute, for example. So
what are your plans in the future for this app? Kasi I think this is really very useful. Not only in the Philippines, Sir Lance, itong klase ng app na to, what do you think? Hindi lang to pang local di ba? Itong app nila na to.
Yeah, actually hindi lang to pang local lang or sabi natin pang Pilipinas lang. I think kasi nga ginagamit din yung yung mga space data din, space assets like population, ganyan all over the world. So I believe na po pwede din to sa buong mundo sa iba't ibang parte ng buong mundo.
Pero dito Donald Trump aware siya.
Kaya pero ito
ma-realize niya totoo yung COVID, no?
Pero ito I mean, sige, dadagdagan ko yan. Ito.
At least dito naman sa atin naniniwala na may COVID talaga. At least safe pa tayo dito.
Oo, hindi kasi doon naman kay Donald Trump, pinapangalanan niya kung saan nanggaling yung virus. Sa tweet pa lang yan. Pero ito yung mga telco natin, ito yung the grand debate Yung mga telco natin, may mga data yan na nakukuha from the mobile phones, kaya ng location. So, ang tanong dito is that if the location na nakukuha ng mga telco from the mobile devices can be used ngayon, for example, in research or in, yan na nga, addressing the pandemic nga So, ang tanong po, pwede bang gamitin yung mga ganyang teknolohiya para lang makita natin kung saan ba yung movement ng tao? Diba? Yun din yung tanong ko ba't hindi natin i-utilize yan? Total aggregate information naman yan, hindi naman yan personal information
Siguro I think if it's partnered with an agency of the government, it could be done. Like if the DOST partners with you and ask for the availability kasi in technicality, these data are paid for by the subscribers, di ba? So, ang may-ari talaga niyan, hindi naman yung telco. Ang may-ari niyan ay yung lahat ng subscribers. So dapat nga hindi nila binebenta yan eh kasi ano ko yan eh. Privacy ko yan, 'di ba? Bakit mo sasabihin, 'di ba?
Actually, ano naman, careful naman yung mga telco in what kind of data that they're releasing. I mean, that's ethical practice din pagdating sa data. So they're not really releasing anything that allows us to pinpoint kung sino talaga yung tao na nag-move in and out. It's not as granular as that. It's very
lumabas si
aggregated.
Michael sa bahay niya, yari ka ngayon sa
Oo. Hindi siya
sa
ganun
bahay mo.
ka-extensive. Pero I feel like moving forward, if this project demonstrates real value that can be actionable, and then we can later open up na actually guys, kailangan namin tong data na to, but it's expensive. I heard, I'm not sure, but for example during the COVID-19, some of the data sets from corporate people are given to the government as a form of contribution in mitigating the crisis, and it was done out of social responsibility. So maybe like you've mentioned, kapag government partnership siya, parang pwede sigurong i-mandate na for the sake of social good, for the sake of everyone, make this data available for analysis, and just make sure na na aggregated siya and not don't have the capacity to detect kung sino exactly yung tao kasi that's user privacy invasion. So yeah, yung solution lang doon.
Napansin ko habang ni-interview kita, para napansin ko, risk analysis yung forte mo. So technically, this app is in some way risk analysis, right?
Yeah, yes.
So ayan, nag-isang oras na naman tayo ng AKTV at para sa huling mga mensahe ng ating mga mga bayaning Pilipino, sabihin na natin, siyempre, tayo naman hindi na kailangan bariling ka sa likod para maging bayani ka, di ba?
Yeah.
Kasi tayo lahat, may kanya-kanya tayong contribution sa society. So yun, simulan natin, final message sa HARLEE para sa mga aspiring scientist and data practitioner na mga manonood, makapanood. Yan. At na isa mo sigurong gusto niya sabihin ay sana po mag-improve talaga ang ating internet. Yan. Baka naka-converge talaga to si HARLEE. Tatalungin natin bago tayo magkahiwa-hiwalay kung ano ang internet connection. At yan, simulan muna natin kay Sir Michael ang kanyang words of wisdom for today. Babalikan natin si HARLEE.
Ayan. So,
I guess
naman.
From experience.
Ang hirap pala nito. Yan. Talawin ka muna namin bago mo ulitin. Ano bang internet connection mo dyan? Alam mo, mahirap ito pag nagsasalita siya na nagsasalita tapos nag-render lang natin. Yun, di ba? Diyos ko, internet talaga ng Pilipinas. Siya po yung inahangad natin na maayos talaga. Pero mga may natamaan ng bagyo. Sir Michael, ayun, ikaw muna. Words of wisdom. Baka na-converge ka, HARLEE, ha?
Siguro yung una kong mensahe, no?
Na-converge ka, no? Babalikan ka namin. Converge ba yun sa'yo? Converge?
Siguro dapat ayusin natin ang ating broadband infrastructure ng ating bansa. No? Bago pa iba pang mga bagay, yan ang dapat i-priority ng ating bayan. At saka ipinamalas, kagaya nila HARLEE, yung team ng Sentinellium na kayang-kaya ng mga Pilipino kahit hindi sila magkakilala. Okay? Hindi sila magkakilala na pwede magsama-sama, makagawa ng app, ng project.
Kahit mabagal ng internet, nakagawa sila ng app. Diba? Yun yung malapit.
Diba? Yun na nga naalala ko tuloy, David, paano pa kaya yung mga nasa bundok? Diba? Yung talagang nahihirapan kumonekta sa internet para makapag-aral. Pero ito, ipinamalas ng grupo ni HARLEE ng Sentinellium na kayang-kaya magtrabaho kahit mahirap pa kahit mabagal pa yung internet connection. And Ito yung maganda dito sa special edition ng Space Hubs. Hindi lang NASA, hindi lang Amerika ang kumilala dito sa angking galing ng ating mga kababayan. Kasama na dyan ang European Space Agency, Japan Aerospace and Exploration Agency, yung KINES ng France at saka ng Canadian Space Agency. Itong mga 5 space agency ng buong mundo, ikinikilala ang tagumpay ng ating mga kababayan. Siguro naman, panahon na para yung sarili nating bayan ang magbigay ng karangalan para sa ating mga bagong bayani. Bakit sila naging bayani? No? Bakit sila naging bayani? Dahil nagbigay sila ng time and effort upang gumawa ng isang bagay na makikinabang. Makikinabang tayong lahat through the use of space technology, through Earth observation data. So, sana maibigay ng ating pamahalaan ang nararapat na suporta para sa ating mga innovators.
Kahit 1% lang po ng 15 billion na nawala sa PhilHealth, pwede na.
Yun. Hindi lang yun, pati yung dolomite, no? Sana, kahit porsyento man lang doon. At saka yung ham and cheese, no? Yan. Oo, yung ham and
nakakahanga. Hanga ako sa ikaw, lalo na sa ginagawa mo, nakakabilib tong mag-organize ng ganitong NASA Space Hubs Challenge. Ito ba talagang plano mo ituloy-tuloy at wala bang sukuan ito, Michael?
hanggat may Pilipinong naniniwala sa science, technology, mathematics, engineering na makakatulong, naniniwala mga Pilipino na makakatulong ng teknolohiya na to para sa bayan, para sa kalikasan, para sa ating kapaligiran, para sa ating lipunan. Ipagpapatuloy natin to, no? Kahit nahihirapan na tayo dahil sa pandemyang dulot ng COVID-19. Aminin ko, guys, inaamin ko, David, HARLEE, nahirapan tayo nung pag-organize ito. Lalo na nitong huli, no? Nitong huling hackathon nung October. Ay, nga pala, no, mabanggit ko lang, sumali ulit yun si HARLEE din.
Sumali ka, alam ba ito? Kamusta naman?
Sige, sundot na.
Wala, may result na ba? May result na?
Wala pa po.
Wala pa.
Wala pa. Actually, nakaligtas sila doon sa local level. Diretso na sila sa yung global nominee. Antay na lang natin kung magiging finalist sila, then after ng finalist magiging winner. So yun. So again, finalist, then winner. So hopefully, no, HARLEE, manalo na naman yung team ninyo as finalist or winner. At saka sana, no?
Wala ka na namang team, nagpunta. Uli, gano'n ulit.
Opo, yun yung road accident risk analysis na ginagawa namin.
Pero may team ka na ngayon na pumunta, wala pa rin.
So what happened was, yung Sentinellium as a team grew into 20 people. Tapos, out of the 20 people,
20 na kayo!
Out of the 20 people, pumili ng 5 to join the October hackathon. So, yeah.
Biruin mo yun, naging ka palang parang inspiration sa marami pang tao, no? Sir Michael, baka may gusto ka bang idagdag bago natin ibato ulit kay HARLEE?
Ayan, HARLEE, baka gusto mo rin akong maging member dyan, todo pumutan natin yung gawa mo.
Minamanage na namin ngayon yung paano siya, yung product na startup na siya. Pero yung prototype, inaayos muna namin yung prototype. Tapos after nun, tsaka na namin ulit siya i-open to the public. Actually, madaming nag-message na gusto nilang mag-intern, ganyan. Pero we said na for now, para mas madaling i-manage yung workload, I wanted a small team para mas madali sa akin mag-delegate ng tasks. And so yeah, after, hopefully, by next year, meron ng demonstrating prototype na, we can show to the public.
So, yeah. Si Mayor ba? Nag-PM ba?
Sino po?
Si Mayor.
Sinong mayor po?
Kasi ito, banggin ko lang David kasi napansin din yung gawa din nila HARLEE din, tsaka iba pang mga finalists and winners ni Senator Angara. So minention din ni Senator Angara, baka daw mapansin din ni Mayor Magalong din into contact tracing. So, sabi ko, sana makatulong yung gobyerno, IATF, in further developing this app para makinabang yung sarili nating bayan, di ba?
Kasi hindi lang nga to COVID This is also for future pandemics like, di ba, dengue, measles na bumabalik ngayon, di ba? Grabe yung nangyayari. Mukhang may outbreak din daw ng measles. Mas maraming tinamaan this year compared last year. Hindi lang napapansin masyado.
Yun nga madagdag ko lang ng yung tinatawag na zoonotic disease. Talagang threat to sa natin Talagang threat pa sa ating sa public health. No?
Mas marami na virus sa mga hayop, technically.
Oo. Ayan, number 1, yung dengue nga. Mosquito-borne diseases, yung chikungunya ba yun? Zika virus, malaria, rabies. Isa sa mga pinakamatinding virus. Oo. So, ayan, yung SARS, SARS na yan, SARS, Middle Eastern, then tong coronavirus outbreak, measles, ang dami pa So, yun na nga kung makikita ng ating pamahalaan na kahalagahan ng paggamit ng mga makabagong teknolohiya na ginawa ng ating kapwa Pinoy naman. Yun yung maganda din, gawang Pinoy, no? Itong mga data galing sa NASA, galing sa iba pang mga space agency na nagbigay ng free and open source access. So sana i-cultivate natin yung talent. 'Di ba? Sana mabigyan natin ng suporta.
Tulungan natin ang ating mga Pinoy henyo na totoong tao. Yan, HARLEE, final message for our episode for today.
Ay, sorry ulit. Nawala po ulit yung internet ko ata.
Yan, final message sa mga nakikinig at nanonood sa atin ngayon in behalf of Sentinellium.
Ayun. Yeah. So, I guess what I would like to say to everyone na lagi ko ding sinasabi pag nagtatanong anong motivation is stay curious. Most of the things that we're doing right now is out of curiosity, out of hypothetical thoughts and whatnot. So if you want to contribute to society, whatever talent that you have, I encourage you to utilize it in coming up with a solution that can help yung mga kapwa natin Pilipino, for example. Kasi kami ngayon, hindi lang naman kami composed of technical people Meron din kaming artists working with us to come up with good ways on how to actually visualize the things that we are doing, how are we going to impart this to the public and whatnot. So, gawin natin to para sa sambayang Pilipino and tulong-tulong para umangat tayo as bansa. So, yun. Stay curious.
Yan. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, HARLEE, for again gracing our show for today. Ano mga kaibigan, next week po, next Wednesday, pag-uusapan naman natin ay COP 26. Diyos ko. Pang 26 times na nag-uusap yung mga world leader tungkol sa climate change and climate crisis. Hanggang ngayon, lumalala pa rin ang sitwasyon. Di ba? Ang hirap mag-usap ng mga gobyerno. Tapos, na-postpone pa kasi nga may pandemic. So, yung mga kabataan, gagawa ngayon sila ng COP 26. At ang guest natin, mga kaibigan, ay ang nag-iisang climate activist na Pilipina na member ng organizing team para sa COP 26 that will run from November 19 to December 1 online. Ayan. Pwede kayo mag-participate actually, mockcop.org. mockcop.org. May pwede kayo makinig sa mga pag-uusapan, pwede kayo mag-participate sa mga statements. Alam na, napakahalaga nito, no? For our future kasi ano mang gawin natin, in the end, ang gobyerno po ang nasusunod. So kahit tayo mag-activist dyan, mag-advocate tayo, magtanim tayo ng puno, pag biglang sinabi ng gobyerno, kailangan ko ng lupang yan, kailangan ko sirain lahat ng puno dyan, wala po tayong magagawa. Kaya nga, kailangan natin talaga na ma-push itong mga green policies into action. So yan, maraming salamat sa inyo. At syempre, Sir Michael, magkakasama pa tayo next time. Ang i-guess naman natin, hopefully, ay yung pawikan, no? Ito naman for environmental mapping naman, no? Ay, okay na sila. Ayun. Maraming salamat. So sa December yan, mga magiging guest natin sa December, no? Yang pawikan. At hopefully maging guest din natin yung Kadiwa at saka yung Tusing PH, yung cryptocurrency Pinoy. Excited akong malaman yun. Meron pala tayong ganun. Cryptocurrency na Pilipino ang may gawa. Tapos connected pa sa Veritas, sa charity. Kaya hindi ako nag-i-invest kasi ito mga iniintay ko mga local para sa suportahan natin. Di ba? Isa mag-invest kasi ibang bansa, ito yung sariling atin. Di ba?
Uy, interesting tong tong crypto, in fairness interesting tong cryptocurrency na to. Nagawang Pinoy. Baka pwedeng
kahit sila ka sa Veritas, yung Kadiwa ng Veritas na tumutulong sa mga farmers. Yan. So, kinokonvince ko na mag-guest para naman, alam niyo, masuportahan ng mga kapwa Pilipino. Kasi kung malalaman yan, malay na, magsama-sama tayo, mag-invest tayo sa blockchain saka sa cryptocurrency na sariling atin. Yan, again, maraming salamat. No? HARLEE, good luck sa dalawa ninyong proyekto ng Sentinellium at sa lumalaki mong startup business. Congratulations. Pero mo, nagsimula sa isa. Dumami. Ngayon, 20 na. Wow! Unexpected yan, no? Congrats. Sir Michael, sana dumami pa yung mga katulad mo at marami pang sumuporta sa inyong proyekto ng NASA Space Apps Philippines. Hanggang sa muli po mga kaibigan at wag po kayo alis, panoorin niyo po at pakinggan ang ating mga susunod na ending videos and notes. Maraming pong salamat. Hanggang sa muli mga kaibigan. Yan, eto tayo. Goodbye ladies and gentlemen. See you again. Thank you.
This month, climate leaders are supposed to meet at COP26 to tackle climate change. It is called COP26 because it's the 26th time they have tried to agree on a treaty that was signed on 1994. That was 5 years before I was born. Climate crisis continue its devastation, and yet COP26 has been postponed. Our leaders are not dealing with climate change this year. To fill the void, we created Mock COP26, a virtual event that will mirror the real COP. 300 students from 75 different countries will meet for a 2-week period. We will hear speeches, have workshops, and will produce a statement for our vision of our future. It is possible thanks to the help of co-coordinators and volunteers working around the clock. Crowdfunding to make sure our co-coordinators are paid a fair wage. And to ensure that this event can deliver this critical message to our global leaders. This is our vision for a sustainable future. Please help us make it a reality.
Mock COP26 is an event that will take place from the 19th of November to the 1st of December, where young activists will set out their views on how to address climate change and create a more sustainable future for all living beings and ecosystems.
The first week will see speeches and workshops from high-profile individuals and youth activists to inspire our generation and to understand some of the ideas and concepts that there are to help mitigate climate change and deal with this catastrophe. The second week will see high-level statements made on behalf of countries by their youth delegation, and then discussions to work out our high-level statement for the end of the 2-week conference.
It will be a platform that will give voice to the youth, the women, the indigenous communities, the marginalized communities, people who haven't always underrepresented in talk like this.
The youth understand that there is no time to delay on climate action, and we are mobilizing to fill the void created by the postponement of COP26.
We're all hugely disappointed that progress towards climate action is being delayed for an entire year, which is time that we just don't have to be wasting ignoring problems that are getting more immediate every day.
So this is it. This is the chance to show the world leaders how youth can shape climate talk.
So I really urge everyone to participate in the mock COP, whether you be a delegate, participating in an event, but the key importance of this conference is that you learn from it and take action, because we've had enough decision making. So right now we need to implement as many actions as possible all around the world.
Sumusumpa ako sa ngalan ng bukas na ipagtatanggol ko ang kalikasan, mamahaling tapat upang tayong lahat ay magtamasa ng biyaya ng may kapal. Bawat hakbang nitong sumpa ay aking gagawin sa salita, sa isip at gawa, nang ang pagtatanggol sa kalikasan ay maging taos-pusong panata ng bayan. Sumusumpa akong aalagaan ko, sumusumpa akong kakalingain ko ang kalikasan at kapaligiran ko, at pagmumula nito ng bagong pag-asa. Sumusumpa akong aalagaan ko, sumusumpa akong kakalingain ko ang kalikasan at kapaligiran ko, at pagmumulan ito ng bagong pag-asa. Sumusumpa ako na gagawin ko lahat ng aking makakaya upang maging ligtas at magandang tahanan ng mundong ito para sa ngayon at sa mga susunod na salinlahi. Isang sumpang maghahatid ng bagong pag-asa at pagmumulan ng tunay na pag-unlad. Tulungan nawa ako ng may kapal. Tulungan nawa ako ng may kapal.
This is not a drill. My name is Greta Thunberg. We are living in the beginning of a mass extinction. Our climate is breaking down. Children like me are giving up their education to protest. But we can still fix this. You can still fix this. To survive, we need to stop burning fossil fuels. But this alone will not be enough. Lots of solutions are talked about. But what about a solution that is right in front of us? I'll let my friend George explain.
There is a magic machine that sucks carbon out of the air, costs very little, and builds itself. It's called a tree. A tree is an example of a natural climate solution. Mangroves, peat bogs, jungles, marshes, seabeds, kelp forests, swamps, coral reefs, they take carbon out of the air and lock it away. Nature is a tool we can use to repair our broken climate. These natural climate solutions could make a massive difference.
Pretty cool, right?
But only if we also leave fossil fuels in the ground.
Here's the crazy part. Right now, we are ignoring them. We spend 1,000 times more on global fossil fuel subsidies than on natural-based solutions.
Natural climate solutions get just 2% of all the money used on tackling climate breakdown.
This is your money. It is your taxes and your savings.
Even more crazy, right now when we need nature the most, we're destroying it faster than ever.
Up to 200 species are going extinct every single day.
Much of the Arctic ice is gone. Most of our wild animals have gone. Much of our soil has gone.
So what should we do?
What should you do?
It's simple. We need to protect, restore, and fund. Protect. Tropical forests are being cut down at the rate of 30 football pitches a minute.
Where nature is doing something vital, we must protect it.
Restore. Much of our planet has been damaged.
But nature can regenerate, and we can help ecosystems bounce back.
Fund.
We need to stop funding things that destroy nature and pay for things that help it.
It is that simple. Protect, restore, fund.
This can happen everywhere. Many people have already begun using natural climate solutions. We need to do it on a massive scale.
You can be part of this.
Vote for people who defend nature.
Share this video. Talk about this.
All around the world, there are amazing movements fighting for nature. Join them.
Everything counts. What you do counts.
People always tell us that young people are going to save the world. But there is simply not enough time to wait.
The fallout from climate change.
The impacts could be catastrophic.
All of this with the global warming, it's a hoax.
It is the most pressing issue of our time.
You have to go to school.
When it came to the climate crisis, I saw my parents were just like everyone else. We weren't doing enough. For many years, people refused to listen to me. Children were very mean. But I don't care about being popular. I care about climate justice.
She felt she had to do something, and she had to do it on her own.
Is climate change an issue that children like yourself should be concerned about?
You suffer of Asperger syndrome.
I wouldn't say suffer from, but I have it. When I get interested in a subject, I become laser focused.
There's a real movement that's growing.
Greta comes up on stage, she speaks, and her words are devastating.
My name is Greta Thunberg, and I want you to panic. We are in the midst of a mass extinction.
Time is running out. I can't just sit there and watch her do all this for the environment and do nothing.
We will be a pain in the ass. We will keep on striking until they do something.
We don't want to burn out.
I think you should especially be really careful.
I have been invited to the United Nations Summit, and since I don't fly, it's going to be a challenge.
This is all wrong. I should be back in school, on the other side of the ocean.
What we are doing now, future generations can't change. Despite all the beautiful words and promises, our political leaders have failed us.
Some people are so arrogant to think they can change climate.
She faces a really, really tough journey.
Nothing is happening, so we must do what we can. We will not stop until we are done.
You read a lot on climate?
A lot. I'm a nerd.
Tonight, we've got rather different program for you.
I am David Attenborough, and I am 93. I've had the most extraordinary life. It's only now that I appreciate how extraordinary. The living world is a unique and spectacular marvel. Yet the way we humans live on Earth is sending it into a decline. Human beings have overrun the world. We're replacing the wild with the tame. This film is my witness statement and my vision of the future. The story of how we came to make this our greatest mistake. And how, if we act now, we can yet put it right. Our planet is headed for disaster. We need to learn how to work with nature rather than against it. And I'm going to tell you how.
With 10,000 arrows declined, remind me that you are my armor. There's always a place I can hide when I am desperate for shelter. You're my covering. I'm safe. I'm safe. Whatever comes at me, I'm safe. I'm safe. You got me under your wings, under your wings, under your wings. You got me, you cover me, I'm under your wings. With every step that I take, you are before and behind me. In every fear that I face, oh, I'm constantly finding you're my covering. I'm safe. I'm safe. Whatever comes at me, I'm safe. I'm safe. You got me under your wings, under your wings, under your wings. You got me, you cover me, under your wings. You got me under your wings, under your wings, under your wings. You got me, you cover me, under your wings. You're my covering. I'm safe. I'm safe. Whatever comes at me, I'm safe.
Hello Philippines, my name is Sushmita.
I'm Sam,
Broadcasting live from Global TV Bollywood Studio, India.
live from Global TV London studio. You are watching Global TV Philippines.
I'm so excited to join you. Catch me soon on the Rapporteur News with
Isabel Fernandez
and Chino Hansel-Filiang. Together, let's unite the universe with substance by bringing news you can trust. Until then.
See you.